I'm here with Bill Dendle, who is seeking re-election for the school board position, District 1, I believe. Now I'm asking the same questions of all the candidates, and you're acknowledging to me and everyone who's listening that you've had no foreknowledge of the questions that I'll be asking, correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I have a different type of question to start with. Tell us something unique about yourself.
Wow. I'm trying to figure that out. Regular guy, goes to work every day, and that in and of itself may be somewhat unique in today's world.
True. What do you bring to the table that enhances the school board?
I want to say a passion for the students and their future success, and two, I have an accounting degree from ASU, got it back in 1977, and so during my early times on the board, Mr. Archer, who was the treasurer for quite some time before me, took me under his wing and helped me with the ins and outs of school finance. And so at this point, being on the board for almost 11 years, I feel pretty comfortable with the process, our budget process, some of the pitfalls that could happen to us. And so we as a board, I especially, am protective of the taxpayers' money. And I think that's an important part, our process that we go through in the kind of this board makeup right now.
So what motivated you to step up and run again for school board?
The biennium process for funding for schools is coming up. With recent events, as you guys know, in the public arena, oil prices declining, pandemic issues, all that kind of stuff. I don't think that we're going to see funding as full as maybe the last couple of years. House Bill 3 helped us out a little, and so I'm thinking that we're going to see a pullback of some of those funds. And at this point, with 80 to 85% of our budget being personnel, there's not that much leeway in our budget for other things, and so we're going to have to be careful moving forward in the next couple of years to make sure that we ensure that we are sound fiscally as we move forward.
Okay. Do you have children or grandchildren currently in SAISD?
Previously, I had 3 kids in school, all graduated from Lakeview, all went to college. Right now, I've got a granddaughter at Central. She's a sophomore. And then also have a 3rd grader at Santa Rita, granddaughter.
All right. So since you do, what is your number one complaint about our school system here?
The number one complaint, I don't know that I really, as an overseer, have a complaint, but I really would like to see as many parents and community members involve themselves in this educational process, because that's going to be our future.
What do you like best about our school system?
I like best, again, from an overseer's position, for lack of a better term, I like best that even though we're in that position and we have 14,000 students, give or take, each one of those kids is important. They're not just a group of kids or a number of kids or a matrix that we look at, but all of these kids have names and all of them are important.
All right, we're going to change it just a bit. I'm going to ask your perspective on a variety of topics, kind of like bullet points.
Uh-oh.
You can do short or explanatory, totally up to you. So, your perspective on transgender restrooms and showers.
Wow, that's an interesting topic. We're not there yet. I mean, there's a curriculum audit coming up here probably in the next 2 years. As far as I'm concerned, I believe that boys are boys and girls are girls, and restrooms are for boys, and restrooms are for girls.
All right. Teaching sexuality options to elementary age children.
I don't know. That probably needs to come from parents. rather than school, and you are saying that it's migrating down into the elementary schools.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, haven't seen that yet, but as the state brings these mandates down, any controversial issue that comes up, obviously the school board and the school is going to have parents and community leaders that review those policies and procedures, and that obviously I'd want to reflect the conservative values of this community.
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory, you might have to explain that to me.
Well, that's something that's being talked about quite a bit that is crossing our nation. It has to do a lot with teaching that the white race is very prejudiced.
You know, again, as a school board member, I don't see color with kids, period. And so as far as if you're saying that I'm against the white race advancing itself, I'm not against any race advancing itself.
Okay. Misinformation and omission in our textbooks today.
Again, we have the right to review that information, and I want to think that with parents and that community members, we want to get involved in that process whenever we do have a revision with each process. And so that way we can ensure that we're providing the right information for those kids.
Old-fashioned reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Of course, those are foundational concepts for education, and obviously each portion of those curriculum pieces all mesh together. You're going to have a tough time doing math if you can't read the numbers, and you're going to have a tough time communicating if you don't know how to write. So I know that we've got some reading programs in the initiative right now that obviously we see star scores, but we see them way after the process, and so if we're trying to jump ahead of the curve with some map processing that we're doing now, which gives us some numbers throughout the year on whether our kids are improving or not improving, and also students which are struggling with that issue. So we're looking forward to that program as we go forward to see how it works. I say it's relatively new, 3 years maybe, something like that for schools, but we're seeing some good data and some reports come out of that where we can tell whether our programs are actually working or not.
Teaching life skills.
Teaching life skills, I don't know which particular student population that you're referring to, but everybody's going to have life skills as they move forward. Going to have training in that stuff, for sure.
Teaching the trades, plumbing, electrical, construction.
You know, I live in the trade area, and so I would consider myself somewhat of a tradesman, and it's going to be very important that we advance programs for all those trades, because right now I want to say the average age of a master plumber is over 60 years old. And so I know it's a lot easier to sit in front of a screen, maybe push buttons, but there's a living to be made in the trade, and it's nothing to scoff at. Just saying.
I agree, off the record. Mask mandates and social distancing when youth had virtually zero issues with COVID-19.
That question I could answer last week, I could answer next week, and I can answer today, and probably they're all going to be different. Right now, today, the local CDC mandates that in the school area, if a child is wearing a mask in a classroom environment, if the class is wearing a mask in the class environment, and one child tests positive in that environment, then the whole class is not quarantined. If the mandate is that we don't wear masks, or if the class is not wearing masks, and a child comes down with COVID or is tested positive, then the whole class goes on quarantine for 14 days. So it's important to keep kids in school right now. And as long as that CDC mandate locally remains in effect, I'm going to have to support it. We've got several teams and programs going on right now that are advancing the state, and that if we don't use that mask protocol, because that's what the regulations are falling under right now, we could see some of those kids suffer immensely in their future because they just didn't get to participate in that program because they weren't wearing a mask. Next week, that may change.
Yeah, and kind of following the next bullet point says, students in sports being required to wear a face mask while competing.
That's a difficult question. I know that I don't think the baseball teams are wearing masks, but only when they gather. So when they're out on the field, I don't think they've got the mask on right now. I haven't had a chance to go to a baseball game at Lakeview this year because it's been a little busy campaigning. Sorry.
Changing the names of schools.
You know, I guess you can go back to the school board procedures recently. We investigated one. I personally did some research on that. I also investigated the names of some other schools that could have some effects. And if you look back on those notes, at this point, I would not be in favor of changing any other school names.
Okay. All right. Enough bullet points. We'll go back to questions.
Thank you.
Would you be willing to stand up for the betterment of our children against TEA mandates?
You know, we have lots of mandates that we follow. Obviously, there's some input in there, and obviously we would have some input if they were against the best wishes of our children. We would obviously go back to the TEA with our strong opinions about that.
If our community does not want these or and other progressive, secular, anti-faith standards in our schools, would you fight to bring back godly standards to our local school system?
You know, it's not a big deal, but I go to church every Sunday, and that God is important in that process, not only in kids' lives, but in everybody's lives.
So what would you be willing to do if that was a yes?
Obviously, you're going to have to stand up for what you believe in spiritually, and obviously fight to keep those values in school.
Okay. Do you think there should be an exit test for students to show that they can handle basic life skills, basic employable work requirements, and not simply just passed along to keep the numbers looking great in order to receive their diploma?
There's a test out there right now that they take to exit school, and so if they don't pass those standards, then they don't get a diploma.
Okay. The budget and overseeing facilities are a large part of the responsibilities of the school board. Share your ideas on how to keep our facilities in good repair and updated without busting the bank.
Right now, we run a fairly conservative budget. I would say we run what I would call a 98% budget, with 2% of those funds held back for emergency projects, stuff that breaks that we don't have the money to fix, but we do have the money to fix because we've provided wisely. Probably during the last 5 or 6 years, we've provided we've taken on over $10 million in capital projects that helped keep our schools updated, that we knew that were coming down the pike that we needed to keep fixed. AC project at Lincoln and Lee, aging processes, both over 20 years old, had obviously ticking time bomb, have to do something. A little expansion at Glenn, that school needed some room. Several other projects, some new buses, our bus fleet was aging, so that's not really a capital project, but that is a big expenditure. But I think that this board is concerned with the appearance of our schools. We have a pretty robust pro-maintenance mandate that we want to keep our schools looking good and in working condition. Obviously, we're dealing with some facilities that are extremely old. Again, the budget is tight right now, but as far as money to spend on a huge capital project or the building of a new facility, it doesn't exist in our budget right now, and it's not going to the way the state funds us. And so going down the road at some point, maybe after I'm off the board, maybe at the end of my term or somewhere in there, there may be a bond issue that comes up. But right now, I don't see it in the next year or two anyway, because of the shrinkage of funds that I think is coming in the next biennium.
Okay. Okay. Do you think our current financial structure, budget-wise, is too top-heavy administratively? Would you be willing to trim at the top to allow more funds to be utilized at the actual school level?
If we could find something, yes, but right now I want to say that we're pretty trim top to bottom, regardless of the position that other people may hold. We have some administrators at the top right now that are creating some pretty robust programs that are we're seeing some difference in, and so I wouldn't think that we are heavy, top heavy. So I'm not seeing a way to trim at this point.
Okay. Do you prefer automatic pay raises or more of a merit-based raise, and why?
The merit-based pay system would be tricky in a school situation, and so right now there's room within the pay scales at this point to reward tenure and some success. So there is some variance in there, just not much, and so I'm going to say that I'm going to stay with the fixed pay raises at this point.
Okay. If parents are not happy with what TEA is requiring, what are you willing to do to be their voice to the state?
Well, I think I'm there right now. I'm on the school board. I'm voicing the opinions of the local community, I think. I am watching their dollars, trying to spend them wisely, and would not object going to Austin if there was something that really came up. I have a regular job, just like everybody else. It takes at least a week of time out of my personal time every year to attend classes to make sure that we're up to speed and educated properly for our jobs. But obviously, an important issue like that, the kid, whatever the prospect of that news would be coming down, obviously I'd take time to address that.
Okay.
Personally.
Describe, I need to tweak it a little bit since you're on the board, but anyway, here's the way it's worded. Describe what you envision as being the representative for the people who vote you into this position on the school board. So how do you represent your people here?
Again, I represent the constituents of single member District 1. Obviously, if the school is struggling on the other end of town, that's still going to be a huge issue. And so I want to see success across the board in all students. If there are students struggling at one school, we need to search for ways to make sure that we alleviate that problem, whatever it takes. And especially if they're in single member District 1 or whatever, I want to see kids succeed even more. Kind of partial, but not that I'm trying to back off of any other issues that we have in other schools, but we want to make sure that all these kids succeed, regardless of where they go to school in San Angelo.
Closing thoughts or comments you'd like to share?
And I'm not for sure that answered your last question because I kind of rambled on that. My bad.
I think you're okay.
The kids that the 14,000 kids that are in school right now represent the future of what this nation will be in the next generation. And so if we're not caring and attentive to what they learn, how they learn. In addition to that, be progressive enough to see new educational opportunities on the horizon, jobs that are being created right now. We need to prepare these kids for not only what exists that we know about now, but to be open-minded enough and maybe collaborative between themselves to see what will be the jobs of the future. And so as we move forward, you know, not only do we have to educate for now, but we have to instill some sort of vision into them of what they're going to be doing in the future. And I'm an advocate for that. And I want to see all these kids succeed, regardless of their position in life, for lack of a better term, how they grew up, where they grew up. They're all important to me.
If someone wants to reach out to you to help you with your campaign, Facebook page, website, email, phone number, how would they get in touch with you?
Got a Facebook page. You can find me on Facebook. Actually, my youngest daughter is running my social media campaign for me. So proud of that. She's very good at that. And that job probably didn't exist when she was in high school. So kind of unique, you know.
Do you know what your Facebook page is called?
It is, yes, I can tell you in just a minute. But I think it's Bill Dendle for school board.
Okay, all right. That would be a good place to start.
As far as contributions are concerned, I've made it a personal choice not to accept personal contributions. And those that have given it to me, I'm in the process of returning those to them. I would appreciate their vote. The Lord's blessed me in a way that I've been able to do this on my own, and that's just a personal choice that I made. If you want to call my house phone, 325-658-6318, you're welcome to. More than likely, because of the spam calls that I get on that, please leave a message. I'll call you back. You're welcome to call my cell, 325-234-3334. Right now, you may get my message because it's extremely busy in my regular job. But you're welcome to reach out to me there. You can also look at my email address, Bill Dendle at SAISD.org, and you can fire an email off to me there. Again, don't look for an immediate response unless I happen to be there. Maybe 3 or 4 or 5 hours, 10 to 12 hours before I get back to you. But yeah, you're welcome to reach out to me in any of those ways. And look forward to hearing from you, because the more of you guys that participate and are interested in the process, the better off we'll be in the future.
Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and I wish you all the best in your campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Orwell. It's a pleasure being with you.